Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the new album from Kid Ink titled My Own Lane. Okay. Believe it or not, I do read a lot of other people's reviews of music. Not because I'm looking to parrot opinions or seek validation in critical consensus, but because I'm always curious where and why my points of view might clash with other people's. And the fact that there is critical disagreement, that's not a bad thing either. People have differing opinions, and civil debate and discussion is always appreciated. And look, nowhere on the internet is that sort of debate and discussion more intense and heated where it comes to hip-hop. Particularly acts that sit on the borderline between underground and mainstream success, and especially those that move directly into the mainstream. Now, I'll admit that pop rap isn't always my thing, but there are ways of doing it well. I have a higher tolerance for pop than most, and I was willing to keep an open mind when I dug into the independently released debut album from LA rapper Kid Ink, Up and Away from 2012, just to get an idea of where this guy came from. I mean, it's early January, nothing much comes out this time of year, and I wanted to make sure I did my research effectively. And besides, the album couldn't be that bad, right? Well, it wasn't. Look, Kid Ink's Up and Away, it's not a great album, but it's okay, and it has a couple decent club bangers on it that I did really like. Part of my issues came with the Kid Ink's choice of a hip-hop sound, which is the nebulous genre of cloud rap, which is characterized by ethereal sounds, odd samples, and futuristic beats. Kid Ink sticks with an accessible form of it, to be sure, in instrumentation and in subject matter mostly surrounding clubs, but while cloud rap has more of a focus on melodies, which I did like, I found the instrumentation just to be a little bit too cluttered and the production just a little bit too slick. Now, most of that masks the bigger problem of Kid Ink as a rapper, namely that he's not all that interesting. His flow was a blend of Drake and Chris Brown. He has neither Drake's wordplay or emotional heft or Chris Brown's singing voice. The best word to describe him, coming off of Up and Away at least, was inoffensive. It's not all that something that's special or all that memorable, but well, some of the grander melodies on that album were enjoyable enough, and there was some occasionally good wordplay. So I gotta admit, I had low expectations going into this album. How'd it turn out? Well, this album is actually pretty damn good. And believe me, I'm as surprised as you probably are. An early January major label release from a pop rapper featuring not one, but two Chris Brown collaborations. That screams mediocre cash-in record for me, but I ended up liking a lot more of Kid Ink's My Own Lane than I thought I would. Frankly, this record is exactly what I was hoping B.O.B's most recent album, Underground Luxury, could have been. But you know what? Hey, I'll take good music regardless of its source. So, okay. What went right here? Well, we can start with the instrumentation and the production, which did exactly what it needed to do with a major label pop rap release coming from the underground. It cleaned up some of the clutter in the production, added some heavier beats for a good solid foundation, and fused it all with the crisp melody lines that were the best part of Kid Ink's work in the past. And man, some of the hooks on this album, they just work for me. The horn-driven hook and the movement, the 80s gothic synths and main chick, and the phenomenal song Rollin', and the oddly gorgeous guitar effects and No Miracles. Even on the hooks I didn't like as much, Kid Ink's producers make the smart choice to keep things very upbeat, radio-friendly, and in contrast to most of the mainstream rap scene, not all that dreary. Even though most of the cloud rap sound has been left behind in favor of something that's a little bit more mainstream and accessible, which will cause some people to scream sellout, which is unfair, Kid Ink brings the best elements of that scene to the table with a free focus on melody-driven hooks. There are points where trap instrumentation starts to come in, and you gotta be honest, frankly, the dourness of that particular style of instrumentation are easily the low points on this record, with the worst being the album closer, More Than a King, for more reasons than just that, but we'll come back to that. So, okay, let's talk about Kid Ink himself, who was arguably the least interesting thing about Up and Away, and it seemed like the label agreed with that assessment and then overloaded this guy with guest stars, which is not a good sign, and frankly, he doesn't need them. Now you can try that, you can tell that Pusha T feels that he doesn't have to try, and then Kid Ink just blows him off the table on their collaboration Murda, and then he does the same thing for Tyga on their collaboration. Now, for once, Chris Brown is actually decent on the hooks of his two songs, mostly because they're not nearly as explicit and they avoid the wordplay that tends to make him somewhat insufferable and creepy. But for me, the big standouts were King Los on No Option, where he's got just great rap interplay with Kid Ink and a definite name to watch coming up, and Elle Varner, whose raw passion on No Miracles was striking, memorable and really quite potent. I really hope to hear more from her. But what about Kid Ink himself? Here's where we got distracted again. My previous problem with the guy is that he didn't really have enough to stand out and be something of a unique personality in the rap scene, given that his obvious similarities with Drake. You know what? I'm happy to say this record took a number of steps to alleviating that problem. For one, unlike Drake, Kid Ink is consistent. He knows exactly what he wants to be, and he sticks within his range, and he doesn't really attempt to go above and beyond it. And for one, he's not somebody who spends a lot of his time bragging or trying to denigrate his audience, and that wins big points for me. His strengths are more rooted in populism and fun and bringing people together to get drunk and screw. And honestly, the combination of that populism with his consistency, you know what, that makes him stand out in today's modern rap scene. Yeah, I'm not gonna deny that he's clearly out hunting for sex anywhere and everywhere that he can get it, but he doesn't really come across as lecherous or leering or all that creepy. Mostly because, and this is kind of funny, I don't think he's got the emotional range to pull that off. Now, Pusha T, for instance, he's got the emotional range there, and he sounds lecherous and creepy on his tracks, and that was the other reason why his verse on Murda sounded so out of place. Well, Kid Ink, he just sounds bemused and surprised and just willing to take it as it comes. And you know what? That makes him a lot more likable. On the other hand, his lack of range can work against him. The ballad Tattoo of My Name tries to make Kid Ink taking his girl to get a tattoo of his name on her chest. He tries to make that come across as romantic or sweet, but it really comes across as egotistical, and I gotta admit, not all that attractive. But look, the greatest strength of Kid Ink is a solid understanding of this album's scope. He's looking to make an album full of relaxed, fun party bangers. That's it. And with that in mind, he worked on making those types of songs the best he possibly could. This is where the big improvements to his rhyming and flow pay big dividends, because you know what? Off of this album, Kid Ink is a solid technical rapper, and his punchlines, they just have an effortlessness to him that trusts the audience to follow along. Yeah, there are a few flubbed lines, but they're not enough to seriously slow this album's momentum, which is a great hidden strength. You want to keep hearing this album and you want to keep listening to it because it's got that great flow between track to track. And you can also tell that Kid Ink worked really hard at constructing solid lyrics that have a surprising amount of wit, but he makes it sound easy. He's likely capable of saying more, which means that this album never really rises into something that's all that special or that will likely stick with me beyond simply being a really fun record. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with good time party songs, and Kid Ink handles it all with a lot of flair and a lot of style. In the end, you should not ignore My Own Lane by Kid Ink, because it's a lot of fun. Energetic instrumentation, some great wordplay, some solid guest performances, and Kid Ink delivering better rhymes with a populist spirit than so many rappers trying way too hard to convince you that they're better than you. Is this album lightweight and is it kind of poppy? Well, yes, it is. But Kid Ink does that particular style damn well, and My Own Lane really works in that vein. For me, it's a strong 7 out of 10, and it's a definite recommendation, especially for the songs The Movement, No Miracles, and especially Rollin', which might go down as one of my favorite songs of the year. It's a great song. You know what? My only regret with this album is that the record label decided to dump it in early January, where it'll likely be forgotten by most people. Because really, this album shouldn't be. Check out My Own Lane by Kid Ink. He deserves it, because this album's a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. If there's anything I might be able to do to improve my presentation, or if there's any 2014 albums you want me to take a look at, in most cases, I'll be more than happy to take a listen. Until then, see you next time.